Today I am batch cooking for a family of 7, and by the time I'm done, we will have about 40 meals handled, freezer and pantry. So weeknights can stop being a daily emergency in our house. We're doing about 10 bags of meatballs, taco meat, roast beef, chicken strips. Basically, the future me is going to cry happy tears a lineup of food. We're going to be starting with ground beef because it's about to become 4 different dinners: taco meat, plain canned ground beef, meatballs, and meatloaf. And first up are going to be the meatballs, because once these are bagged, that's lunches, spaghetti nights, meatball subs, Swedish meatballs. Basically, pull a bag and pretend you planned ahead. And before I touch a single ingredient, I am going to try to get my counters cleared off, get my tools out on purpose, because if I just start grabbing stuff, it is going to turn into a scavenger hunt, and suddenly I'm annoyed at the fridge like it did something to me. So I've got the cutting board out, my gloves on, temporarily because I do have ADHD, and about 3/4 of the way through this, I will lose those and not put them back on. I'm going to get my food processor out, and we're going to move straight into prep. And yes, I am chopping on the board and sliding things where they need to go. This is a no hovering, no staring into the kitchen like it's going to whisper the next step to me situation. It is a assembly line cooking, not a let's hope and see what happens. For these meatballs, this is a rough, dependable, tried and true mix. The kind you can make on autopilot and it still tastes like you tried. We're talking onion powder, garlic powder, chives, salt, pepper, a dash of paprika if you feel like it, breadcrumbs, and eggs. Quick sidebar. On batch days like today, I am not trying to make every step cinematic. I am trying to make it repeatable for you guys. So every time the counter gets messy and my brain starts buffering, I then try to remind myself that it is not a cleaning day, but a cooking day. I'll do a little wipe down and then try to move on, because by the end of it, things will probably get a little bit messy. I love that this meatball recipe is dependable and forgiving, and it tastes like you meant to do it, which is always a win. This is gonna save your weeks over and over. You can have crispy air-fried meatball lunches, like I mentioned, those spaghetti nights, and just little dinners that magically happen because your freezer is stocked and full. This first step is super easy to set in motion. You're gonna get your station set up, you're going to get the prep moving and keep your momentum going, because once we're rolling meatballs, the rest of the day just gets easier. And I'm trying to stay in the we are cruising lane, not the why did I get myself into this lane, which is always really helpful on batch cooking days. Alright, quick pivot, because this is one of those batch day moments where you either adapt or you end up rage ordering takeout. This recipe right here is Cochinita pork, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's this citrus pork that tastes like you just did something very impressive, and you're basically throwing it in the crock pot and letting it do its emotional labor all on its own. This recipe does call for achiote. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's a type of paste. I do not have this on hand in my kitchen. However, I had all of the ingredients to make a DIY version of it. So you will find this recipe and all of the other recipes from today's batch cooking day on our website. And even though we didn't have it on hand, on this channel, we don't panic, we pivot, we make it ourselves, and we keep rolling. So once I have all of my spices out and I have built my own achiote, hopefully again I'm saying that right, paste, I'm going to start mixing things up into the crock pot. This is the kind of meal that makes batch cooking feel like you're cheating, which is one of my personal favorites, because the crock pot does all of the work for you while you go back to your assembly line. This is also one of my favorite future dinner moves, because once it's cooked, it turns into a whole stack of meals without having extra effort. I can go ahead and use this in tacos or rice bowls, on nachos, and in sandwiches. Essentially, you can work it into whatever your week needs it to be. So while the pork is getting situated in the crock pot, I'm already mentally filing it under 2 dinners handled, check. And now I can keep moving on to the rest of the list without stopping to think. And just so we're clear, that is the theme of today. Real family volume, no drama, systems that keep the wheels on. Because we're not doing 40 meals worth of cooking and then losing the plot over one missing ingredient with that achiote paste. Up next, we have our next big win, barbecue meatloaf, which is one of my favorite feed a lot of people freezer wins because it's high payoff and it reheats like it was born for weeknights. And yes, I am using my professional giant size KitchenAid for this because we are doing batch quantities today. And let me tell you, even a big mixer has feelings when you overfill it. So if you're watching this thinking, why is it trying to escape the bowl? It's because I got a little too overconfident. Oh, classic. Here's the logic on this barbecue meatloaf mix. We're using barbecue sauce as its binder, so you don't need eggs. The sauce does that job. It holds things together, it adds moisture, and the flavor is already pre-built in. But then you have an ADHD moment of the day where I go ahead and crack an egg anyways and realize mid-motion, oh wait, we don't have to do eggs in this one. So now I've got 1 egg in the mix because my hands were faster than my brain, and a second egg that has been demoted to a little bowl on the counter while I regroup. No big deal, we just correct it like adults. If you accidentally add an egg in, the fix is more breadcrumbs so the meatloaf doesn't turn into a soft, wet situation. So our base is ground beef, lots of onions and garlic. I like to throw diced up bell peppers in there. If you have those, great. If not, no big deal. Barbecue sauce. I'm a little extra, so I also put homemade barbecue seasoning into the meatloaf with the barbecue sauce. Breadcrumbs, and it's perfection. While the mixer is doing its thing on repeat, I'm also trying to keep an eye on the stove because I've got that ground beef over there cooking. And on days like today, you don't really want to set it and forget it unless you want a surprise later on. So while I'm stirring the pot every so often and keeping things moving and trying to keep this whole kitchen in a productive kind of chaos, I'm also enjoying the process. I often do voiceovers because I have music in the background. You may on occasion see me dance to that or sing along. And once this meatloaf mix looks pretty uniform, not overworked, just combined, we're shaping it, portioning it, and getting it ready so future dinners are basically heat and pretend that you tried. Okay, here's the part that makes meatloaf actually usable later, because I'm not freezing mystery bricks and then just hoping for the best. What I do is I line the meatloaf pans with parchment first. It keeps everything clean and makes the whole remove it later situation a non-event. Then I portion the mixture straight into the pans, smooth it out, and we're going for a repeatable size on purpose. Future me does not need variety. Future me needs predictable cook time. And this is the key. I'm flash freezing while they're in their meatloaf pans. Once they're firm, I can pop them out so I can see the exact size, make sure it's good, same thickness, same shape, no weird lopsided meatloaf that takes 2 different bake times. After that, I go and put them into gallon size freezer bags for storage. They stack nice and flat. So later it's not, what is this? It's pull one out, bake it, and dinner is handled like a pro. Plus, that little crinkle of parchment paper and the thunk when it plops into the pan, I'm not gonna lie, that is the sound of me respecting my own time. What's really great about this is you can swap out the barbecue sauce for homemade honey mustard or regular honey mustard, and you have 2 different varieties of meatloaf and you're crushing it. Now that that has been handled, we are going to make a huge roast in the crock pot. I'm talking an enormous size roast. This is one of those cuts where you commit now and then 8 hours later you feel like a genius. So into the crock pot it goes with beef bouillon, and yes, I make mine because the store-bought bouillon is expensive and I'm petty about it. And then I'm gonna throw in some Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, beef broth, and a little bit of ranch powder because it's that sneaky flavor that makes the roast beef taste like it was catered. Then it's on low for 8 hours and we walk away. Batch cooking rule, if you can't walk away from it, it's not helping you. And while the crock pot is doing its job, I can focus on doing mine. I get the freezer bags labeled, the meatballs are getting bagged up, and everything belongs, well, where it goes. Because if I don't label it now, it becomes a mystery freezer artifact, and we are not doing freezer archaeology in February. Once I have the crock pots cooking and I have basically the meatloaf and the meatballs done, I'm gonna go ahead and take a moment, wipe off the section of the counter that I'm capable of wiping off, and then make myself some coffee. Yes, I flatter myself with this genius coffee. This is not a promotion in any way. I like it. It makes me feel like I'm doing something good for myself while indulging in my favorite habit in the world, which is coffee. And then we are going to work on this taco meat. Now that the ground beef has cooked, we're going to turn it into actual taco meat. Basically, I'm going to take my ground beef and I'm going to split it into lanes. One lane is going to stay open for whatever we need later, and lane 2 becomes the taco meat. Because taco night is not a meal, it is a emergency response plan. And I like to keep our taco meat stupid simple. 4 cups of water, about 5 tablespoons of taco seasoning. Yeah, we go ahead and make this too. Again, it's all on the website. And I let it simmer until it actually tastes like something and the liquid reduces. Once I get that taco meat back onto the stove, Seth volunteered to cut up some chunks of beef shoulder for me so that way we could use those in our French beef stew. You'll notice I put cinnamon in my coffee. I'm a very big fan of that. And I'm going to go ahead and take the chicken and start making a marinade now for chicken strips. These chicken strips are perfect for making crispy chicken tacos, for making things like homemade wraps with the tortilla and the honey mustard sauce and the crispy chicken strip for lunch. This is a win, a solid win. One afternoon of making fried chicken and you get to eat it for months. I like to start with 4 cups of milk and a half a cup to a cup of buffalo sauce, depending on your preference. This is marinade number 1. The chicken goes in for at least 4 to 6 hours. And then we're gonna move on to brine number 2, which is pickle brine chicken, which, listen, if you make a bunch of pickles every year, you know that that brine is liquid gold. So I save the pickle juice from every jar of pickles that we open and keep it in the fridge, and then I'll use that to marinate the chicken in the same way. It's like, it gives fast food chicken vibes, except it came from my own kitchen and not a drive-through lane. Once it's in its bowl, it's gonna go back into the refrigerator in the garage to hang out for that 4 to 6 hours, and we are going to celebrate the fact that our amazing pork is done. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the giant pieces of orange as well as the cinnamon stick from this, and then I'm gonna give it a solid mix together, and you can just see how amazing this looks. I cannot even put into words how delicious this is. It's just fantastic. It's gonna go straight into its own foil pan, and this is one of those meals that makes you feel like you did something dramatic when really you just set the crock pot and you kept on living your life. This is the sort of dish you pull out if you have company coming over and you want them to be like, dude, she cooks really well. This is your show-off dish. It's outstanding on a tortilla with a little bit of Mexican crema. So good. Remember to hydrate on batch cooking days. It's important. And then, because life is never just one thing at a time, my daughter really wanted to try this TikTok pineapple cutting hack that she saw, and it was a complete fail. Like, technically the pineapple did get cut, but not in the way that TikTok had promised. But honestly, it was kind of the vibe of our real batch day. Some things are systemized and gorgeous, and other things you're just standing there thinking, why is this fruit frightening me? Anyways, back to the food. Proteins are stacking, pans are filling, and we are actively buying ourselves dinners. Future us is about to be insufferable with how prepared we are. So once the pineapple of doom is out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab my skillet and I'm going to get these chunks of beef shoulder that Seth cut up for us cooking on the stove for a French beef stew. I wanna sear these on all sides as much as possible because it gives it just a really great flavor. And at this point, the taco meat just finished doing its thing on the stove. It's one of those moments where it doesn't need babysitting, it just needed time. So once it's cooled down enough that I can handle it and it actually looks like taco meat instead of soup, I ladle it straight into the quart-sized jars. Nothing fancy here, just real food getting put away while it's hot and ready. And once that is in its quart-sized jars, we're gonna go ahead and make ourselves another batch of this because we want to be super prepared for all of the nights where we don't wanna cook dinner and have it done and out of the way. You can see our stove is working overtime with the seared meat and the taco meat and the ground beef all going at once. It is doing a full job today. I have a ton of these Instapot pans, more than I probably need because I've had to replace my Instapot a handful of times now. And I need chicken broth and shredded chicken for future me's happiness. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take our frozen chicken, put it into the Instapot. I am going to pour enough water that I can completely cover these, max fill that Instapot, and go ahead and pressure cook it for about an hour. That's going to make this super flavorful chicken broth, and it's going to make it really easy to shred this chicken. Now that I have the taco meat out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and strain the juice from the roast. This part matters. I don't want to lose this. This juice is gold, so we're going to set this off to the side and not throw it out. The juice is everything, and I mean everything, because after we shred up our pot roast, you're going to put it into a foil pan, and pour this juice back on top of it. It's going to freeze, and then when you reheat it in the oven, it is going to give you the most insanely flavorful roast beef that you will ever eat. I can't even put it into words. It's exceptional. It's so good. And then I don't have to season this. I don't have to do anything with it. I just have to pull it out of the freezer. And it is my go-to roast beef recipe. It's simple, dependable. It works for au jus sandwiches and freezer meals and just straight up dinner plates. It's outrageous. It's so good. So if you've been with the channel for a little while, you know that I bought a smoker. It's an electric one, and I do this in the garage, but I have to put the screen up so that way we don't get any surprise flying insect visitors while we are smoking things. And we are going to take some of our giant cuts of beef shoulder, divide them in 2 pieces, and we are going to make smoked roast beef for sandwiches. That starts with taking your little pieces, wood chips, and putting water on them so that way they can absorb that liquid. But right in the middle of this, Seth hands me a tank top that he bought and surprised me with that says ADHD, Highway to a Squirrel. It's a mock on AC/DC, which honestly feels very on brand for today. Completely unnecessary, completely perfect, 0 notes. It was adorable. So while the smoker is going, we are doing our dry rub for the smoked roast beef. I've got those huge chunks of beef shoulder ready to go, and I want to mix up a simple dry rub that I can use on all 3, nothing fussy, and get those pieces really, really well coated. Things like paprika, pepper, a dash of cinnamon, garlic powder, onion powder, and brown sugar. Again, this step super customizable. You can alter it, change it, make it sing and dance if you want, use whatever you like. Once the smoker is up to temp and those chunks of beef go on, that's where they're gonna stay. Low, steady heat, lots of smoke, and plenty of time. This is one of those things that smells incredible long before it's done, so you don't want to rush into it. You want it to stay where it's at for as long as possible without peeking and opening those doors. Once it's finished, you end up with this smoked roast beef that can be eaten as is, shredded, frozen, turned into all kinds of meals later without doing a single extra step. And it is fabulous. This is the kind of cooking day where everything just sort of overlaps. Stove, smoker, Instapot, Crockpot. But by the end of it, future dinners are basically handled for a good long while. While that's smoking, I go ahead and start our French beef stew using the Crockpot as bowls. I'm going to do 2 of them because I'm going to make a really large batch of this. I add garlic and onions and tomato paste first and then put the bowls into the oven. This step really matters because it wakes the tomato paste up and it gives you way more flavor than just dumping everything in cold. After about 30 minutes, I will go ahead and pull those out, and then I will add the beef broth into that and let it cook again in the oven while I move on to the next thing. It gets the stew working, making itself pretty much, and I can go ahead and I can prep the chicken legs. This one is super simple. I put them into the foil pans and do 2 different versions. One gets a ton of dry rub barbecue seasoning, which I'm gonna brag for just another minute. I make it myself, and guess what? You can too. I will teach you. Label it, boom, it's done. It's ready to go in the freezer. The second pan gets my homemade wet barbecue sauce. Same deal, label it, boom, done. Ready for the freezer. That is 2 meals in like 5 seconds. The Crockpot bowls are going to come back out at this point, and I'm going to season these into what probably makes it not really French beef stew, but Tasha's version of French beef stew, because I always go back to the classics. Garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, a little bit of thyme, a dash of rosemary, and then we are going to add into this those seared chunks of beef. We're going to put that back into the oven while I go ahead and chop up the potatoes for this dish. I'm going to go ahead and do this to both batches, both Crockpot bowls essentially. Make sure they're nice and seasoned, put back in the oven to hang out. And then I'm going to grab out my potatoes. I like to dice these up into, I would say about a 1-inch bite-sized piece, sometimes a little bit smaller than that because I have little mouths to feed and they don't like huge, big pieces of potatoes. That's not something that they're super happy about ever. So once those are cut up, I'm going to set them off to the side just long enough to fill up my pressure canner because we had so many meals and dishes that we made that I have to get this cooking or I will very rapidly run out of daylight. Then it is pull those Crockpot bowls out of the oven, get the potatoes in there, and have a very ADHD moment while I forget that the oven is open. I do something a little bit odd where I add milk and I also add in warmed cream cheese, which you'll see later in the video. I heat up a bowl of a package of cream cheese, mix it all together with a whisk, and then I put this into the crock pot and it just gives it this chef's kiss level flavor. It is so good. I mean, we only live one life. So if we're gonna do something, why not do it on purpose? Why not eat food that tastes good on purpose? If you have to eat a meal, why not make it an exceptional meal? Here you're going to see the roast beef that came out of the smoker. Okay, guys, people started sampling this and it very quickly became a smorgasbord of everybody eating the roast beef because it was so good. It was beautiful, genuinely worth the wait. Seth sliced it up on the deli slicer for us, and then this video completely lost control because it was a feeding frenzy. It was amazing. It had the smell. It was so much better than the deli stuff. I can't even tell you. But that's what happens on days like this. When the canner is running and the crock pot is going and the freezer is getting filled, we often find that the kids are snacking on all the things that have been in the process of being made, which I'm fine with. It almost turns into an all-day eating buffet rather than me having to make lunch and dinner because there's all these things out and accessible. Now I did need my crock pot for other things, so this turned into a transfer moment. The stew was done, it was exceptional, and I moved it into my giant Dutch oven. Here you can see what I was referencing with the heated up cream cheese. You don't want to just put a block of cream cheese into a warm dish like this. It will melt but into little chunks and pieces rather than being blendable with the dish. So if you find that you have to add cream cheese to a dish later on that has ingredients in it already, you want to heat it up in the microwave first. That way you can mix it up, soften it, and it will blend into whatever it is that you're putting it into, not only more beautifully, but more effectively. And then I'm going to start the process of getting these into canning jars. While holding the first jar, I was like, dang, that's hot. So I'm going to put that on the counter and continue to fill that up so that way we can get this going into the pressure canner as well. Once I get the majority of these sealed and canned, I have lost all control and make a huge mess on my counter trying to strain these chicken fingers that have been marinating. Yes, I did clean up my mess. I just, at that point in the day, you know, you're tired and your pouring skills not so great anymore, but that's okay because the food is still aces, exceptional. And we are going to make our dry batter for our chicken fingers. This one is super simple. You're gonna use flour, smoked paprika, salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. I like to use white pepper in my fried chicken. It just feel like it gives it a little bit of something extra. A couple of cups of milk, 2 to 3, and 2 eggs. You're gonna mix that all together, and we're gonna go through the very straightforward process of dipping our chicken fingers into the wet batter and then into the dry batter. I do like to have the oil preheated on the stove because then I don't end up with soggy chicken. So if you are making fried chicken, that's something I very, very much recommend that you do. And during this stage, I have a tendency to move a little bit quick. You don't want to overcook them in the oil, and you don't want to end up where you've clogged your assembly line by getting very easily distracted by what is going on. So this is the time where I will turn the music up. I will tell the kids to go play outside, so that way the hot oil situation doesn't become an emergency room situation, and I will focus on getting the chicken fried. You're gonna see it here in just a second. It is so good. There is nothing like pickled chicken that has been deep fried. So amazing. You can see my happy dance there. Look at how beautiful that is. It is crispy, it is delicious, it is flavor from the inside of the chicken to the breading on the outside. It makes wraps and lunches and snacks a million times easier. And I will say that the kids definitely got into some of this before I was able to get it out into our freezer for long-term storage. This is another one that I will flash freeze and then pull it back out, put it in gallon-sized Ziploc freezer bags, and then move it back to the freezer. And then it's on to cleanup time. It turns into a pick up the kitchen as much as humanly possible, and I will end up washing a lot of our cans that we ended up pressure canning throughout the day. You don't want to put away cans that are gross and disgusting, so make sure you wash those off with cold water. Hot water will unseal them. And by the end of the day, this is what it looks like. Jars filled, freezer stocked, smoker shut down, and dinner already handled without even a second thought. Nothing about this was fancy. It was just stacking real food, one step at a time, and letting everything work together instead of trying to do it all separately. And that is the part that makes days like today completely worth it. The canner is still running in the background, the Crockpot is done, the freezer is full, and the kitchen is finally quiet. And tomorrow is easier because today showed up. That's it for this one. Pull up a chair anytime you need a reminder that doing the work once really does carry you forward. Bye, y'all.